When I say almost all companies should have a personal computer with a graphic card, I do so because in that way you can save money if you use something related to large language models. For example, the paid version of the services of OpenAI, for example, GPT-4 or newer models. In this video you will see why a computer with just the central processor unit or CPU or processor isn't enough. I'm showing you a service that I host locally that is basically an open source alternative to ChatGPT. But in this case, I don't use a closed source model like GPT, but Llama 3 that comes from Meta, even though technically this model isn't completely free. Anyway, I host this on a virtual private server, something that I wrote about in my blog, and the problem, we can call it like that, of this virtual private server is that it doesn't have a graphic card. It has 4 virtual CPUs, a very generous amount of memory, that means RAM, but no CPU, also from what you can see from here. If I try to run large linguistic models or linguistic statistical models without a GPU, it happens that it takes, in this case, 31 seconds to answer this request of jokes. But if I use a computer with a graphic card, the prompt or input is almost the same. You see that it takes 4 seconds. So almost a 10x increase. You could argue here I used a slightly different model than this one. Not much of a difference. You could argue again, Gabriele, I don't really find the advantage of using what you have as an alternative to just ChatGPT. But the advantage of having such tools on your own infrastructure is that you can play in a much advanced way. For example, one of the reasons of paying for GPT-4 was that it gave the output. Let's take this chat. I asked to generate an Instagram from random data, that is the assumption, and as you can see, with OpenWeb UI, that is the interface you see, I can install a function, it is a confusing name in my opinion, that allows me to run this code. And if I click here, you see that I have the image I want. As you notice from the IP, I run those two on 2 different machines. Again, one has the graphic card and the other does not. But this service called OpenWeb UI also allows us to do other interesting stuff. For example, have pipelines, something that I mentioned in other videos. That means you can have an input of raw data, use the function I showed you to produce results, and send those results to, for example, a group chat on Telegram, Slack, and so on. And that is, as you understood, a pipe. But that's not the end. We can upload documents, especially medium to big companies will find this useful. We can integrate the search, something that Perplexity has and ChatGPT didn't for a while. As you can see here, we can create the connection for the database. If we go to Workspace, you can see where to add models, documents, tools, and functions as the one I showed you. I understand it is a bit confusing because personally I would have done it into the control panel and then settings. But as an open source project, things can change. Most likely when this video will get published, some things would have changed as well. Also, since it is an open source project, you can see that you have a community. So we can go here and we can find a lot of useful stuff, even though it has a language not accessible to everybody. Let me return to the control panel. I just want to show you that I have this service doing the actual work. So the metaphor is like that. This is the listening contour or the interface, and this is the actual back office, that is Ollama, that has my model, and I can also add other ones like DeepSeek for coding task that is actually more useful than this version of Llama. That's all for this video. I hope I showed you the benefits of having those services installed with something you own. If you wanted to explore how this stack of solutions can fit your company, you can book a free call with the link you see in the description.